Whenever I think of Adair Turner, I always remember something that another one of my favorite economists, Robert Skidelsky, wrote about him. Adair Turner is the jewel in the crown of British public servants. He is one of a tiny minority in public life today capable of thinking and acting at the highest level. Skidelsky wrote this in 2012 after the edition of Economics After the Crisis. In the meantime, Adair Turner kept on writing papers, articles, giving interviews, teaching in important universities as the London School of Economics, and fighting bravely for his ideas with the energy we could already see today. His most important delivery was probably Between Debt and Devil, that I consider one of the most informed, brilliant, and provocative economic books of the last years. He also became the chairman of the Institute for New Economic Thinking, an important basis to develop new and unorthodox approaches to economic problems. So I'm deeply honored to receive in my institute a man that has dedicated his life to public service in these times when almost everyone seems to consider that private is beautiful and public doesn't matter. I'm very honored to have with us a citizen deeply concerned with the well-being of mankind, whose fields of interest go from finance and pension system to development and climate change. I'm honored, too, to have someone that helps us in a decisive way to understand the causes of a financial crisis and the risks we are dealing with, joining a powerful scientific knowledge, a long-time acquired inside vision, and a rare determination to fight against conventional wisdom. In our institute that inherited the Portuguese university tradition of studying political economics and public finance in law schools, we have been strongly engaged, as Roy already mentioned, in these last years in promoting a large debate and refusing the "there is no alternative" argument. Only this last week, in very interesting seminars, we were debating the refugees crisis and, on the very 23rd, the British referendum that unfortunately, in our opinion, for us and for the European Union, concluded with a vote for leave. Let me express, therefore, my deep gratitude to Lord Adair Turner and to my longtime friend José Sarmento for inviting our institute to share this organization. Also, I would like to thank Ricardo Rui Per Jorge for coming. I consider him one of the brightest economic journalists in Portugal. It's always a pleasure to work with him. As already told, Adair Turner's main preoccupation is the conventional wisdom that characterized the last decades and its three central assumptions. These assumptions being the crucial objective being the rapid growth in GDP, considered as the measure of a government competence. The best way to attain growth is through freer markets with the privatization, liberalization, and light taxes. The necessity of inequality for ensuring growth. The critique of these positions, obviously, is always developed with respect for market economics and capitalism, as Adair Turner clearly stressed in Economics After the Crisis. In a certain way, the same feeling that led Robert Reich to entitle his book Saving the Capitalism for the Many, Not the Few. It is unquestionable that conventional wisdom is still in place, and most of all, controls the politics of a vast majority of countries, main international economic organizations, and European Commission. As a result of what has been the teaching of economics in a vast majority of universities, and of the unbalanced power of private interests and subordination of politics to them. It is nevertheless important to have in mind that after a period of long dominance of orthodox, repetitive, and uninteresting books, we have been blessed by an impressive set of books that point in different ways and go deeper in the economic thought, ignoring the traditional sound bites. Allow me just to remember four of these books. Two of them were written by Adair Turner's friends, Martin Wolf, The Shifts and the Shocks, what we have learned and have still to learn from the financial crisis. By the way, it was a pleasure to read the Financial Times lunch or talk with Martin Wolf, and Robert and Edward Skidelsky, how much is enough. And time won't allow to go further. Hackerloff and Schiller, Fishing for Fools, The Economics of Manipulation and Deception, and Piketty's Capital on 21st Century, that are powerful reflections on subjects that are central to Adai Turner's reasoning and proposal. In a certain sense, Hackerloff and Schiller's analysis of the markets and their conviction there is an intrinsic motivation in the markets not to behave correctly is parallel to Adai's Turner inroad on the financial markets. It should be presumption to try to explain the fundamental ideas expressed by Adai Turner in Between Debt and Devil. Fortunately, we have the chance to hear him today, so I'll just try to stress some points I found especially interesting. First of all, let me quote the author in a quite clear statement of what its book demonstrates. And I quote, "The fundamental problem is that modern financial systems left to themselves inevitably create debt in excessive quantities, and in particular debt that does not fund new capital investment, but rather the purchase of already existing assets, above all real estate. It is that debt creation which drives booms and financial busts, and it is the debt overhang left over by the boom that explains why recovery from 2007 to 2008 financial crisis has been so anemic." This quote clearly shows us it's a book that seriously questions many ideas we usually take for granted, as for instance the assumption that credit is necessary for growth. It also shows us a point that was stressed by a review of the book by The Independent. Turner is admirably fearless. He goes where his fundamental analysis tells him to go. It's so rare to see someone have this courage. That was not quote, the last phrase. His book is not only a statement about where we are in the financial system, but also a clear proposal on how to fix it. Enough work has been done to characterize wrongdoings and difficulties we are facing, but time has come to put forward projects and solutions. Time has come to replace old remedies that only brought illness by new ones, and that's the reason why his project to fix the system is so important. As it is widely known, Adai Turner defends what is usually mentioned as helicopter money, sustaining that it is necessary to use government money creation instead of leaving this problem only to the private creation of money through the mechanisms of private debt. This naturally in a controlled and sustained way. He absolutely refused the idea that printing money is the devil, and reminds us that in the years previous to the crisis, there was an anathema against money creation and a totally relaxed attitude facing whatever level of private credit free markets generated. Let me just stress three final points I find especially interesting. First, the analysis of inequality and its effects on economic crisis, considering the way easy credit allowed to maintain the inequalities, but once the crisis is installed, drives to larger inequalities, conducting to the loss of families' housing or small business. Second, the clear perception that finance is not a mere technical question, but a political one that can't be left only to bankers. Or, as Adai Turner wrote in an IMF paper last November, the case for monetary policy an essentially political issue. My aim in this paper, he writes, is to assess the possible and appropriate role for monetary finance of fiscal deficits. And I will argue that all the real important issues are political, since the technical issues surrounding monetary finance are already well understood, or should be. and that the technical feasibility and desirability in some circumstances of monetary finance is not in doubt. Third, Turner makes interesting proposals about the Eurozone while questioning if it's an unfixable problem, and defending, in line with the proposal made by several European economists, there should be some mutualization of the debt, leaving a part of it at a state level, subject to market discipline, and another at federal level as an undoubtedly safe asset underpinning the potential backstop of central bank monetization. We came from difficult times, and there is no reason to think they are automatically going to be solved. The Portuguese financial system was never fixed, and it is now in a very delicate position, as we all know, although a large financial effort was demanded to taxpayers. Surely, Brexit will bring new and deep problems to the markets and the debt of periphery states. Will suffer unless something is done, but the past doesn't allow too much optimism. So it's important for us to listen to Adair Turner and to know he will go on with this fight for a decent financial system, necessary condition to have a decent society. We will be marching with you, thinking how different things could have been if you were allowed to put your options in practice. Thank you very much.